we're gonna work our way down. We'll start with reverse gear. We talked about this last class. We'll just try to review it, and we have someone filming it, which will make it more clear. Maybe I'll stand on that side. Okay. Am I blocking you guys? I guess I am. Okay, so obviously, this is your driven sprocket. Your driven chain, drive chain sprocket sits right here. Okay, just like that. Okay. Your engine turns clockwise, which will rotate your drive sprocket in the same direction. Okay. As long as that torque converter is turning, this driven sprocket will be turning. Okay? This is the direction of the vehicle, so we'll call it clockwise, looking at it from this side, okay? Not from this side. Looking at it from this side. So this is the same side as your direct clutch housing, which is on this side of the transmission. Clockwise. Okay? Clockwise. So, torque comes in going clockwise relative to the engine, okay? Which will always be driving. This is splined to your forward clutch. As long as that sprocket is turning clockwise, it will be driving your forward clutch clockwise. Clockwise from the side of the engine, which is this side, okay? Not from this side, just to stress, from this side, clockwise. Make sure you get in all these parts, okay? So, in reverse gear, the two apply devices that are used, okay, are your direct clutch and your low reverse clutch. Okay? Why the direct clutch is applied? The direct clutch is the link between the forward clutch assembly and the direct clutch shell. The direct clutch shell is what sends torque further down the line to your common sun, which we'll talk about next. First, let's talk about the torque flow. Drive chain, driven sprocket. Driven sprocket drives forward clutch clockwise. Again, clockwise from this direction. Okay? Clockwise. In the direction of vehicle travel. Direct clutch, which is in the internal side of these clutches, that gets applied. And when these clutches get applied, they send torque to the forward clutch shell, as shown here. Okay? These spline into your direct clutch, okay, plates. So, as torque goes into the input shaft, into the shell, through the clutch plates, through the steel plates, which are lugged to the direct clutch shell, turns the direct clutch shell in the same direction. So now you have this whole assembly turning clockwise relative to the direction of vehicle, the vehicle direction, okay? The same direction as the engine, clockwise. Torque now leaves the direct clutch shell and transfers into these lugs, okay? These lugs then send torque into the common sun drive shell. Right now, your forward ring gear is not part of the equation. No torque goes into that. Your carrier, though it is spinning, same thing, no torque goes into that. Those are out of the picture for the power flow. Power flow gets sent from the lugs of the direct clutch into the lugs of your common sun drive shell. Okay, torque goes into the drive shell. All of this is still turning in the same direction as the engine, which is this way, sorry. If you were to lay down the gear set this way, just to stress, I am standing on the side of the front of the car. That direction. And also, this is the side of the engine timing lever. So at this point, input shaft torque out to the direct clutch, into the common sun drive shell, which is driving the common sun, is moving in clockwise in this direction, right? Okay, so I'm gonna further take apart this gear. I'm gonna have to remove the front sun gear so I can take out the drive shell. Now, this is the common sun. The drive shell is removed just for the sake of being able to see. This is known as your low reverse clutch piston. Low reverse means this piston is applied during low gear, which is manual low, first, L or first, and also applied during reverse. That's why it's called low reverse. When this piston is applied, it will squish not grabbing the entire pack, it will squish this clutch pack. The steel plates are lugged to your transmission case, which means these never turn, which means this is a holding clutch. If hydraulic pressure applies to the low reverse piston, it will squeeze these clutch discs together, which grab your rear reactionary carrier. Okay? Now, with addition to the one-way clutch, which is inside the rear reactionary carrier, you're getting additional holding force with these clutch plates, which will hold the rear reactionary carrier stationary. Now, if you were to go backwards, torque so far up to this point is going into the common sun. So effectively, like I said, the front planetary unit is not even in the equation. So essentially, you have a simple single planetary gear set. Whenever you hold the carrier, you will have a change in direction. Am I right? Input, held, and in this case, the output will be the rear ring. So now, without all that stuff installed for the sake of illustration, we all understand that the common sun drive shell is turning in the same direction as the engine at this point, which is clockwise relative to the engine timing cover, clockwise. I will turn the common sun clockwise, okay? I'm gonna hold the carrier. Now what we're gonna do is, if you can zoom in ever so slightly, just so that you can see the, do you see the pinions? Are they in the view?
Yep.
Right, so your rear reactionary carrier is held stationary. My hands are doing the job of the low reverse clutch. I'm going to turn the common sun clockwise, and look what happens to the ring. The rear ring is turning counterclockwise. Now, just to stress, I'm gonna lay it forward down. This is the front of the vehicle where I'm standing. Watch the direction of your rear ring. Here, the thing wants to roll off the table. In what direction is it going? Backwards. That's the front of the car, that's the back of the car. Input sun, held carrier, ring output. Change in direction and you get a multiplication of torque. Small driving medium. Small being the sun, medium being the ring, carrier held. Idlers do not transmit torque, do not multiply torque, they're just there to change direction. Counterclockwise. From that point on, remember, if you recall, I'm gonna stand it back up. Rear ring, this is the drive shaft that I'm grabbing onto, is attached to the rear ring. I'll zoom in a little bit more now to make it more simplified. I'll remove the reactionary carrier along with the common sun, which is in my hand. Common sun. Sorry. Come on. Okay, worry about that later. Essentially though, this is your planetary gear set, your compound planetary gear set. It's all there, plus the ring. Now, the rear ring is splined to your final drive sun gear drive shaft. Final drive sun gear drive shaft, okay? Splined. If rear ring turns, final drive sun gear turns, right? So at this point in reverse, we know that it's turning in this direction, right? That way, to the rear of the car. That means, I'm gonna remove this. Notice these lugs here. This is your final drive differential ring gear. The final drive has its own ring gear. This ring gear is fixed to the transmission case, meaning this never turns. This is always stationary, okay? Keep that in mind. This is stationary. This is your rear differential assembly. It's not rear differential, your final drive differential assembly, okay? I'm gonna remove the final drive sun gear from the rear differential, which we know is splined to the rear reactionary ring gear, which is the rear ring gear, right? Which is turning counterclockwise in this direction, that way to the back of the car, okay? Now, this is going to try to turn the rear differential, sorry, keep saying rear diff, the final drive pinions, right? It's going to try to turn the final drive pinions in this fashion. So I'm going to hold it like this. Watch what happens. Watch what happens. We're going to do this, make it all visual. Okay? Can we all understand? This is trying to do this right now, yes? Counterclockwise to move the vehicle backwards, right? That way. But the only reason why the final drive is not turning is because the pinions are allowed to idle freely. But now, when you introduce the final drive internally cut ring gear, which is held, you have, this is fixed, this is trying to turn counterclockwise, right? What happens is these pinions will not be allowed to rotate on their axis. My hand will represent the ring gear at this point. I'm going to grab these pinions and not allow them to turn on their own axis, meaning their shafts there. When I input counterclockwise torque, it's going to want to turn the entire differential in the same direction. That's how I get my reverse gear. And that is the power flow for reverse gear.